Hi guys, James here. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm so excited. I'm sitting down and finally rating all my Colourpop eyeshadow palettes. I've actually wanted to shoot this video quite a few times. I've sat down, but I've never actually got through it just because life catches up to you and everything like that. So I'm finally sitting down. I actually did this look that you can see with my new Colourpop palette. This one here is the Blowin Smokes Colourpop palette. And it's stunning. I've wanted this palette so long, and I actually wanted a full collection, but I couldn't get it, kept getting sold out. So I just finally bought the palette itself. And this was the look I created using this palette. I've only ever used it one time, so I can't really give it a huge rating, but I loved every shade so far that I've used in this palette. No fallout whatsoever. I actually did my foundation and my base first. And yeah, there was no fallout. Thank God. I didn't have to fix anything or correct any mistakes. This palette to me is basically Jeffree Star's cremated palette without the price tag. And guys, I will list everything I've used to create this look, all the shades and everything like that down below if you're wondering. But yeah, it's a beautiful palette and I can see this one becoming one of my favorites. Hands down, one of my favorites. I love this palette. I love the formula. I love the color scheme, the shimmers, just beautiful. I'm actually going to swatch you some of these. All right, so I've swatched a couple. This is the Smoking shade and the Starstruck shade. So those two shades here. I'll just do a quick swatch of them. They're only the shimmers, so I'm not going to swatch every shade in every eyeshadow palette just because it'll be too much, but they're the shimmers. Stunning. And I actually used that on the outer corner of the eye, and then this one in the inner corner of the eye, as you can see. Stunning palette. This is probably nudging up to top 5 in my collections. Also guys, I will actually list a couple of discount codes like Raw Beauty Christie's and Gabriel Zamora's as well. That gives you 10% off full price items of Colourpop, Fourth Ray Beauty and The Soul, the two sister brands of Colourpop. So that will actually give you 10% off full price items. So use those codes if you want to save some. Obviously, I don't get anything for it. They're just some of my favorite YouTubers I follow and they have codes, and you may as well use them because it does save you some. All right guys, the next palette is this one here. This is the Main Squeeze palette. It's a stunning palette. The packaging, I think they're watermelon seeds. I think this is like the watermelon themed palette, but it doesn't have a green for the rind, which I kind of would have loved if there was a green in there. I think that would have made this palette more interesting. It's an okay palette. As you can see, there's a ton of kick up in this palette on the mirror. I haven't used this palette much. I think I might have done one look with it. Also guys, that reminds me, if I have done a look with these palettes, I will put that up as I talk about each palette. Just so you know, oh my God, this shade here, Like It's Hot, this one here, it's like rock hard. Rock hard. That is really dry. As you can tell, I've not used this palette in a long time. I don't know if this palette is good or not. Those two shades are quite similar, and that shade is Froils and Like It's Hot, these two. I wouldn't buy this palette again. I haven't used it very often. I think I might have done one makeup tutorial with it, but I haven't used it very often, and I'd probably buy another Colourpop eyeshadow palette over this one. So I'm going to put that to the side. I don't know if I'm going to keep all these palettes. This is kind of a declutter video as well. I would definitely not buy that palette again just because I haven't used it very often. Color scheme is pretty, but it's just not for me. I've got a lot of palettes that have the same colors that I kind of use over that palette. I kind of forget about that palette there. All right guys, the next palette is this one here. This is the Going Coconuts palette. Stunning palette. Oh my God, there's so much fallout in this palette. Look at all that fallout. Can you see that? All right, I didn't realize that. Now this palette is one of my favorites. Oh my God, I just went to swatch it, and this shade here, Palm Reader, can you see that? That's just crumbled. I haven't had this palette very long. Like, this is one of my newer palettes. Oh my goodness, it's just crumbling. And then the shade Coconut Rush, the one underneath it, that's crumbling as well. Oh my goodness, they're just crumbling. Those are the two shades there. So we've got Palm Reader here, and then we've got Coconut Crush here. They're both stunning, but I don't know why there's so much fallout in this palette. Maybe I dropped it, I don't know. But this palette is probably one of my favorites. It's definitely in my top 5. Stunning palette, and I would recommend this palette to anybody. Might actually have to buy a new one soon because those two shimmers, my favorite shimmers in this palette, have crumbled. All right, so the next palette is this one here. This is the Ma palette. Now guys, this palette is one of my favorite palettes. I've actually done one of my favorite looks ever using this palette. So let me just swatch some of these shades for you. I'm gonna swatch Gridlock, which is this one here. Then I'm gonna swatch, I don't know how to say that, HWY. I don't know. Just those two are there. So we've got this one, that's a shimmer. Then we've got Gridlock. I mean, they're both stunning. Stunning. Oh my god, I'm getting shimmer falling out from that Going Coconuts palette. Look at it falling like snow. Oh my goodness, I'm glad I hadn't put that on my eyes recently, because look at that. That would just fall out everywhere. Anyway, those two are the shades. Those two are the swatches from this palette here. Stunning palette, stunning. I might actually swatch one more wild one, which is like this bronze shimmer here. Just swatch that. I'm gonna swatch it between these two. Stunning. I mean, this palette is stunning. I would definitely buy this one again. I think for $12 US, the formula you get in these palettes is probably actually up there with some of my more expensive palettes like the Pat McGraths and everything like that. Guys, I've always loved the formula from Colourpop, except one palette, which you'll see in a second. I think if you've never tried Colourpop, use the code, get 10% off, or just wait until they have a 20 or 30% sale, because they always do a couple times a year. And just grab a whole lot, because they're well worth the money. All right, the next palette is this one here, Just My Luck. I never thought I'd love this palette as much as I do. The color scheme kind of scared me when I first ordered it, but I just wanted to try green, because I'd never really done a green look, and I'm so glad I did. Okay, there is a little bit of kick up in the mirror, but yeah, this is a beautiful palette, and I did one of my favorite looks with this palette as well, and I did do a makeup tutorial, I think, with this palette. I don't know, but I think I did. That's that shade Mary Jane, which is the middle shade, and then I'm gonna do the Olive You shade. This one here is like an olive tone shade. Both shimmers. Oh my god, that's a beautiful olive shade. I've never even used that shade. So we've got the Mary Jane, and then we've got the Olive You shade. Stunning, both of them. This palette, again, I would highly recommend. I'm definitely going to reorder that one. Anything I put on this side, guys, I'm going to keep. Anything on this side, I'm probably going to declutter. We'll see how many end up on this side, and I'll go through them and make up my mind later. But yeah, all right, so the next palette is this one here. This is the Orange Are You Glad palette. Now, this palette here, first of all, I love the colors in it, the bright oranges, stunning. But this glitter here, I'll do a quick swatch of it. You can't even use this around your eyes. It actually says on the unit carton, do not use this palette, because the glitter particles, let's see, are so chunky, you can't even use it on your eyes. I'll do a quick swatch of it just to show you what it looks like. It's like really pretty. It's just the glitter formula is too chunky, and it would not be safe to do so. And I don't really like the fact that you can't even use this shade around your eyes when it's in an eyeshadow palette. Yeah, I think they should have actually put those glitters aside in little containers, and I definitely actually buy those separately, just because a lot of people love glitter and then they can use it on their cheeks and everything like that. But don't put it in an eyeshadow palette and then say you can't use it around your eyes, because that's kind of stupid. This palette I've actually done a look with. I actually did one of my first makeup tutorials with this palette. I don't know if I've got any photos of it, but if I do, I will put it up. But I have used a couple of these shades in different looks. But I don't know if I'd buy this palette again, because I'm only using a couple of the shades and not using all the other shades. So I might actually just put this to the side and think about keeping it. Yeah, I like the color story, but I just don't like the glitter formula, and I'm not using it enough to rebuy or keep. I think I do need to make some space. I've got too many eyeshadow palettes, and I'll think about that one. All right, the next one is this Lilac You Unlock palette from Colourpop. Guys, if you can hear the dryer, I apologize. My roommates just put a whole lot of stuff in the dryer, and that's outside my bedroom. So hopefully it's not too loud. So this is the color story for this palette, Lilac You Unlock. As you can see, I've used this color the most. There's a little bit of kick up in this palette, but nothing crazy. I'll swatch the most used shade out of this palette. It's actually very dry when I've swatched it. I haven't used this palette in a long time, so some of the shades have probably dried out. A lot of these palettes are a lot older than 12 months, which is what the expiry date for all of these palettes is, or are, but that's the swatches. So that's the shade Iffy, the one I've used the most. And then we've got this shade Wake Me. That's like a very light shimmer. Let me just swatch that so you can see it a bit better. Just want to go over a few times just so you can see the color. That's it there. I do have hairy arms, so it's not really the best to swatch on. Would I buy this palette again? No. Would I recommend it? No. I'm only using really one shade out of this palette, and I don't justify buying a palette for one shade. I'm gonna put this to the side and think about decluttering it. I don't think I've used this palette in over 6 months. So yeah, I'm gonna put that to the side. I don't know about that one. Alright, let me just get my fingers clean so I can swatch them more. So I'm back. I apologize. I actually didn't realize my camera switched off halfway through my filming, and I only realized after I got through most of these palettes. So I've actually got some of these swatches already done on my arm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the palettes I've missed out on, and I will tell you the swatches that I've done on the arm. And hopefully the camera will not switch off halfway through again, which is so annoying. I didn't realize I only had 2 palettes left. All right, let's continue. Guys, the next palette is this one here. This is a strawberry shake palette. This is what it looks like. A little bit of fallout on the mirror. I haven't used this palette in over a year. Yeah, it's just not really speaking to me. I did really love it when I first got it, and I think I might have done a makeup tutorial with this palette on my channel. I don't know for sure, I can't remember. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a beautiful palette. I haven't used it in over a year, so I definitely won't buy it again just because I haven't used it in a year. It's just been sitting there. I did swatch it, so these 2 are the swatches. So this shade here is Take a Sip, and then this one here is Very Fine. They are very pigmented, but I just don't think I will use this palette again. So I'm gonna put this to the side and think about decluttering it because, like I said, I haven't used it for over 12 months. All right, so the next palette is this one here. This is the Lalala palette. It's pretty. Ton of fallout in this palette, as you can see. And again, I haven't used this palette in over 8 months. Yeah, I don't know about this palette. I don't know. Oh, a lot of fallout. I just don't see myself using this palette. This is not in my top 10 at all, this palette. It just really isn't. Let me do a couple of swatches on this side. I'll swatch Tickled, and that's it there. It's a bit chunky, and then I'll swatch Opalescent. I don't know if I'm saying that. I'll put that up on the screen. Oh, very pigmented. It's a beautiful shade. Oh, that shimmer's a bit chunky. Let me just try that again. All right, so that's those 2 shimmers. I don't know. All the shades in this palette I've definitely got in my other palette, so I don't know if I'll keep this palette. I'm gonna declutter this palette because I haven't used it in over 8 months, and I don't see myself reaching for it anytime soon. Even though the shimmers and the matte swatched amazingly, and very pigmented, I don't see myself using that. All right, so the next palette is this one here. This is the All Honey palette, the yellow themed palette from Colourpop, and I can honestly say I've only used this palette once to do a full look, and then I've used this shade here, Sweet Spot, a couple other times, and that's the only shade I've used since. And also, guys, it does have one of those glitter shades that you can't use on your eyes or around your eyes because they're too chunky. I actually swatched it here. I've swatched the glitter shade here. Then I also swatched the Sweet Spot matte here. As you can see, it's not the best because it was on my knuckles. And then this shade here is the shade Dandy. So we've got Dandy, which is this one. We've got the glitter, and then we've got Sweet Spot. I swatched that when I thought the camera was running, but it wasn't. And I did say that I'm not going to keep this palette, so I'm going to put this to the side and declutter that one. All right, the next palette is this one here. This is the Blue Moon palette, and this is my favorite palette from Colourpop so far. It's a stunning palette, and I've done one of my favorite, if not my favorite looks with this palette. It's a stunning palette, and I've used a lot of the shades singly out of this palette just if I needed to complete a look and I needed a bright blue. This palette was the one that I reached for because I know all the shades are reliable. Now with this palette, I would suggest you doing your eyes first, just because there is a ton of fallout with this palette. And because of the fallout, even if you do bake under your eyes and sweep it away, you can still be left with a tinge of blue just because it's a very pigmented palette. I will do some swatches. I'll swatch Tide Pool, which is this shimmer here, stunning. I swatched this one here. I used this shade Lumi, Lumi. This shade here, that's it there, as an inner corner highlighter, stunning for that. And then I'll swatch this Deep Blue Matte Blue, that one here. And guys, that's matte shade there, and that shade is Fine China. I've swatched it on my hand already, stunning. And then we've got this one here, which is the inner corner highlighter, which is also stunning. Look at that, stunning. And then we've got Tide Pool, which is my favorite shade out of this palette. Look at that reflective shimmer, stunning. This palette is everything. I have given this palette away in so many of my mystery style box giveaways just because I want to share this palette with everybody. I love it that much. I would buy this over and over and over and over again. I hope Colourpop never stops making that palette, just because I think it's probably one of their best palettes they've ever had. Alright guys, so the next palette is this one here, and this is the Mulan X Colourpop palette from Disney. This palette, I waited 3.5 months after I ordered this palette. I actually ordered it with the PR box, with the whole collection, the blushes, everything. I don't use anything except the face milk out of that collection because everything was a huge letdown. One of the lipsticks came broken, one of the lip glosses didn't really work. This palette is the only palette I've ever had that doesn't work. The mattes don't blend out, they're very patchy. All the shimmers, it's not a glitter shimmer, it's more of a foil shimmer, but they're really chunky foils and they just fall out all over your face. Guys, I've tried every trick to apply these shimmers and they just fall out all over your face. They crease. I've tried putting it on my finger, using a silicone packing brush, spraying the brush, doing everything. Nothing works with this palette. I will never use this palette again. I don't want to throw it away just because I love the PR box so much. The packaging is stunning. I've got to give it that, but the palette itself is not worth it. So I just keep this in the PR box because I just don't want to throw it away. I waited so long for it. Yeah, I don't want to declutter it just because I want to keep it in the PR box, but eventually I will throw it away. Just know I won't be using this palette ever again. Just nothing works in that palette for me. All right, so the next palette is this one here. And this one here is one of my newest Colourpop palettes. It is the At Forest Side Raw Beauty X Colourpop collaboration, and this is what it looks like. Stunning. I actually just uploaded a new makeup tutorial using this palette and also using the full collection because I did buy the full collection from Colourpop. Stunning. This palette is stunning. I love it so much. Let me just swatch a couple of the shades. I'm going to swatch West Coast, which is this gold shimmer, and then I'm going to swatch PNW, which is this murky blue, and then I'm going to swatch, I haven't actually used this Evergreen one, which is the like olive green shimmer. Let me swatch those. So Evergreen, and then we've got the West Coast, and then we've got the PNW. Oh, PNW is very chunky. Very chunky. All over my new shirt. Yay. Alright, so that's the swatches there. So you can see it's a very dark bluish green. Then we've got the gold shimmer West Coast, and then we've got the Evergreen. The Evergreen is not as pigmented. All the shades are really pretty. I just didn't use Evergreen in my makeup tutorial, but I did use the other two shades. I love this palette. I'm so glad I got it. This collection sold out 5 minutes on Colourpop's website. I was so lucky I got it. Alright, so the next palette is this one here. Now this is the Colourpop Rainbow palette. And guys, actually every shade in this palette comes singly and you put it in the actual magnetic palette itself. And guys, a lot of these shades are actually existing shades out of like these 9-pan eyeshadow palettes. So I think 2 of these blues are in this palette here. So we've got, I think these 2 are in this palette as well. Some of the greens in this palette are in this palette. So you do get some of the double up. So if you don't want to buy all of these, you can just buy this and you do get some of those similar shades. The annoying thing is I've got 3 glitter shades that I'm not going to use. So we've got the green one, we've got the yellow, and then we've got the orange. And guys, I'm not going to use those glitter shades. So they're kind of annoying because they're just taking up space. When I ordered this palette, I didn't realize that some of these shades are the same, and Colourpop didn't have it on their website. So I was just like, I kind of bought the same. But that's all right. I mean, I like some of these shades and I am going to declutter the yellow and the orange shades. So I've got that yellow shade that I actually really like in that yellow palette. So I'm going to declutter the yellow palette, but I do have that yellow. And then I've got this nice orange shade that I'm going to declutter out of this palette. So I kind of like that. But yeah, this palette, I like this palette. I'm going to keep, obviously, because I like it. And guys, we finally reached my last palette out of all my Colourpop eyeshadow palettes. The last one is the biggest Colourpop eyeshadow palette I own. And guys, this is the So Jaded palette. And it is the Catherine Lights X Colourpop collaboration. And guys, I waited for this palette for so long. It sold out so quickly. I was on the website when it was launched, but I just missed out. But I finally got it and it's a stunning palette. I mean, it's got so many colors. It does have 2 glitter shades that I'm not going to use again because they're very chunky. But it does have 1 Super Shock eyeshadow in the corner, which I think is a nice touch. I love this palette so much. Let me swatch a couple of these because I just have to, I love this. So we've got this emerald shimmer, stunning. Then we've got this amethyst purple shimmer, again, stunning. We may as well do the ruby shimmer because why not? That's a stunning, stunning. And then I'm gonna swatch one of these glitters, and that's opal. Oh my God, that's so softly pressed. I almost destroyed it, but that's what it looks like. Let me swatch it. So we've got the opal glitter. Oh, that's so chunky. And then we've got the ruby next to it. Oh my God, that's stunning. We've got emerald, and then we've got the amethyst. Oh my God, that purple is everything. Look at that purple, so pretty. We've got the glitter, opal, ruby. We've got this one, which is emerald, and then we've got the amethyst shade. This palette is so stunning. I need to actually use this palette a lot more. I haven't done a makeup tutorial with this palette. I definitely need to. It deserves the limelight. For a minute, stunning. Such a beautiful, beautiful palette. Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep this palette, and I would highly recommend this palette because it's a beautiful, beautiful palette. Yeah, love this palette so much. And guys, that's the end of this video. So let's kind of do a little recap of all the palettes I'm going to keep. So this side is all the palettes I'm going to keep. As you can see, I've got a few. I've got the At Forest Sight, which is probably number 2 out of my collection. Love that palette. We've got the Mars, which I would rate number 4. We've got the Going Coconuts, which I would rate number 3. We've got my favorite, the Blue Moon palette, which was my favorite, number 1. This one is probably tied with the Black Blowing Smokes palette, which is my newest palette, and I'm wearing that on my eyes today. This one's a tied for, I think, number 5. I haven't said 5. This one here is probably number 7, just because it kind of holds all the palettes. And then this one here is going to be number 6. It's a beautiful palette, but I haven't used it as much as the other ones. But I will. But still, number 6 is pretty good. I mean, it's not a bad number. So yeah, they're all the ones I'm definitely going to keep. And then guys, the palettes I'm going to declutter or just not going to use because I don't want to throw it out. This one here I'm not going to use, but I don't want to throw it out because I want to keep it in the PR box that it came with, just because I want to keep the collection like complete, but I won't use that one. This one here, the Lalala palette. What I might do with some of these palettes is I might depot some of the shades that I really love, but I'm not going to keep this whole palette itself. I might depot this shade here, the middle shade, Opalescent, or whatever that shade is. I might keep that one. Rest I'm not going to keep. And then the next one is the Strawberry Shake palette. This one, I don't see myself keeping any of these shades. This one is interesting. I haven't used that one. I might keep that one, but the rest I'm throwing out. The Orange Are You Glad? I actually have all the doubles that I want out of this palette in the rainbow palettes. So this palette I'm not going to keep, plus it's expired. The next palette is this Lilac You Unlock palette. I'm not going to keep this at all. Oh, can't open it. Not going to keep it at all. And this shade I've actually got in the rainbow palette as well. So I'm going to throw this palette as well. And then we've got the main Squeeze palette. Nothing interests me about this palette. No, I'm going to throw that palette out. And then the last palette we've got is the All Honey palette. Again, this shade is the one that I use the most, and that is in the rainbow palette. So this palette I don't feel any guilt throwing out. I'm going to throw this palette out as well because it does have that awful, awful glitter shade that I can't use on my eyes, and I don't know why they're included. So in total, I have 6 9-pan eyeshadow palettes from Colourpop I'm not going to keep, plus the Mulan Disney palette that I'm not going to use and eventually will throw away. And then we have, what do we have? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 Colourpop palettes I'm keeping. 5 of them being the 9-pan eyeshadow palettes, and then 2 of them being collaborations with Catherine Light and Raw Beauty Christie. And then we've got the rainbow palette that kind of covers all the palettes that I'm throwing out, color-wise. So guys, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this type of video. If you did, leave a comment down below because I have a whole lot of Morphe palettes I can do this type of video with. I've also got some Jeffree Star palettes. I've also got many MUA palettes, Lunar Beauty. I've got a lot of palettes that I can do this type of video with, kind of going through all of them very quickly and doing a couple of swatches out of each of the palettes and just give you a really quick rundown of my thoughts on each of these palettes. And guys, I hope you enjoyed this type of video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and all that type of stuff. And guys, I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Till next time, guys, stay safe and wash your hands, do all that type of stuff, and I will see you later. All my love. Bye.